Tales from Childhood, written by Roald Dahl. Last part. There followed 2 years of intensive training with the Shell Company in England. We were 7 trainees in that year's group, and each one of us was being carefully prepared to uphold the majesty of the Shell Company in one or another remote tropical country. We spent weeks at the Hughes Shell Haven refinery with a special instructor who taught us all about fuel oil and diesel oil and gas oil and lubricating oil and kerosene and gasoline. After that, we spent months at the head office in London learning how the great company functioned from the inside. I was still living in Bexley, Kent, with my mother and 3 sisters, and every morning, 6 days a week, Saturday included, I would dress neatly in the somber grey suit, have breakfast at 7:45, and then with a brown trilby on my head and a furled umbrella in my hand, I would board the 8:15 train to London together with a swarm of other equally somber suited businessmen. I found it easy to fall into their pattern. We were all very serious and dignified gents taking the train to our offices in the city of London, where each of us, so we thought, was engaged in high finance and other enormously important matters. Most of my companions wore hard bowler hats, and a few, like me, wore soft trilbies, but not one of us on that train in the year of 1934 went bareheaded. It was not done, and none of us, even on the sunniest days, went without his furled umbrella. The umbrella was our badge of office. We felt naked without it. Also, it was a sign of respectability. Road menders and plumbers never went to work with umbrellas. Businessmen did. I enjoyed it. I really did. I began to realize how simple life could be if one had a regular routine to follow with fixed hours and a fixed salary and very little original thinking to do. The life of a writer is absolutely hell compared with the life of a businessman. The writer has to force himself to work. He has to make his own hours, and if he does not go to his desk at all, there is nobody to scold him. If he is a writer of fiction, he lives in a world of fear. Each new day demands new ideas, and he can never be sure whether he is going to come up with them or not. 2 hours of writing fiction leaves this particular writer absolutely drained. For those 2 hours, he has been miles away, he has been somewhere else, in a different place with totally different people, and the effort of swimming back into normal surroundings is very great. It is almost a shock. The writer walks out of his workroom in a daze. A person is a fool to become a full time writer. His only compensation is absolute freedom. He has no master except his own soul, and that, I am sure, is why he does it. The Shell Company did us proud. After 12 months at head office, we trainees were all sent away to various Shell branches in England to study salesmanship. I went to Somerset and spent several weeks selling kerosene to old ladies in remote villages. My kerosene motor tanker had a tap at the back, and when I rolled into Shepton Mallet or Midsummer Norton or Peacedown St. John or Hinton Blewett or Temple Cloud or Chew Magna or Pushy Chamflore, the old ladies and young maidens would hear the roar of my motor and would come out of their cottages with jugs and buckets to buy a gallon of kerosene for their lamps and their heaters. It is fun for a young man to do that sort of thing. Nobody gets a nervous breakdown or a heart attack from selling kerosene to gentle country folk from the back of a tanker in Somerset or on a fine summer day in Chumagna. Then suddenly, in 1936, I was summoned back to head office in London. One of the directors wished to see me. We are sending you to Egypt, he said. It will be a 3-year tour, then 6 months leave. Be ready to go in 1 week's time. Oh, but sir, I cried out. Not Egypt. I really don't want to go to Egypt. The great man reeled back in his chair as though I had slapped him in the face with a plate of poached eggs. Egypt, he said slowly, is one of your finest and most important areas. We are doing you a favor in sending you there instead of to some mosquito ridden places in the swamps. I kept silent. May I ask why you do not wish to go to Egypt? He said. I knew perfectly well why, but I did not know how to put it. What I wanted was jungles and lions and elephants and tall coconut palms swaying on silvery beaches. And Egypt had none of that. Egypt was a desert country. It was bare and sandy and full of tombs and relics and Egyptians, and I did not fancy it at all. What is wrong with Egypt? The director asked me again. It, it is, it, I stammered. It is too dusty, sir. The man stared at me. Too what? He cried. Dusty, I said. Dusty? He shouted. Too dusty? I have never heard such rubbish. There was a long silence. I was expecting him to tell me to fetch my hat and coat and leave the building forever. But he did not do that. He was an awfully nice man, and his name was Mr. Godber. He gave a deep sigh and rubbed a hand over his eyes and said, "Very well then, if that is the way you want it, Redfern will go to Egypt instead of you, and you will have to take the next posting that comes up, dusty or not. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir, I realize that." "If the next vacancy happens to be Siberia," he said, "you will have to take it." "I quite understand it, sir," I said, "and thank you very much." Within a week, Mr. Godber summoned me again to his office. "You are going to East Africa," he said. "Hurrah!" I shouted, jumping up and down. "That is marvelous, sir. That is wonderful. How terrific." The great man smiled. "It is quite dusty there, too," he said. "Lions?" I cried. "And elephants, and giraffes, and coconuts everywhere." "Your boat leaves from London docks in 6 days," he said. "You get off at Mombasa. Your salary will be £500 per annum, and your tour is for 3 years." I was 20 years old. I was off to East Africa, where I would walk about in khaki shorts every day and wear a topi on my head. I was ecstatic. I rushed home and told my mother. "And I will be gone for 3 years," I said. I was her only son, and we were very close. Most mothers, faced with a situation like this, would have shown a certain amount of distress. 3 years is a long time, and Africa was far away. There would be no visits in between. But my mother did not allow even the tiniest bit of what she must have felt to disturb my joy. "Oh, well done, you," she cried. "It's wonderful news. And it is just where you wanted to go, isn't it?" The whole family came down to London docks to see me off on the boat. It was a tremendous thing in those days for a young man to be going off to Africa to work. The journey alone would take 2 weeks, sailing through the Bay of Biscay, past Gibraltar, across the Mediterranean, through the Suez Canal and the Red Sea, calling in at Aden, and arriving finally at Mombasa. What a prospect that was! I was off to the land of palm trees and coconuts and coral reefs and lions and elephants and deadly snakes, and a white hunter who had lived 10 years in Majna had told me that if a black mamba bit you, you died within the hour, writhing in agony and foaming at the mouth. I could not wait. Although I did not know it at the time, I was sailing away for a good deal longer than 3 years, because the Second World War was to come along in the middle of it. But before that happened, I got my African adventure all right. I got the roasting heat and the crocodiles and the snakes and the long safaris up country, selling shell oil to the men who ran the diamond mines and the sisal plantations. I learned about an extraordinary machine called a decorticator, a name I have always loved, which shredded the big leathery sisal leaves into fiber. I learned to speak Swahili and to shake the scorpions out of my mosquito boots in the mornings. I learned what it was like to get malaria and to run a temperature of 105 Fahrenheit for 3 days. And when the rainy season came and the water poured down in solid sheets and flooded the little dirt roads, I learned how to spend nights in the back of a stifling station wagon with all the windows closed against marauders from the jungle. Above all, I learned how to look after myself in a way that no young person can ever do by staying in civilization. When the big war broke out in 1939, I was in Dar es Salaam, and from there I went up to Nairobi to join the Royal Air Force. 6 months later, I was a fighter pilot flying hurricanes all round the Mediterranean. I flew in the western desert of Libya, in Greece, in Palestine, in Syria, in Iraq, and Egypt. I shot down some German planes and got shot down myself, crashing in a burst of flames and crawling out and getting rescued by brave soldiers crawling on their bellies over the sand. I spent 6 months in hospital in Alexandria, and when I came out, I flew again. But all that is another story. It has nothing to do with childhood or school or gobstoppers or dead mice or voyagers or summer holidays among the islands of Norway. It is a different tale altogether, and if all goes well, I may have a shot at telling it one of these days. Thank you for listening.